Welcome to your review of the morning papers. With us, the Executive Chairman of Cicero Group, Ian Anderson, and journalist and writer Nabila Ramdani. Welcome back to you both. New Year's honours are the big story today, and you've picked out, Ian, on page 6 of the I think it is, the fact that there are no gongs for people involved in the Grenfell and terrorist attacks this year.
Yeah, it's a missed opportunity, Tom, in my view. There are folks on the list who have quite rightly been awarded honours, in my view, for sporting successes which were won and took place after the Grenfell disaster. I think the Grenfell disaster, to my mind, is one of the most significant things that has happened in Britain in 2017, and I think it is a glaring gap not to recognise that in the New Year's honours. I think there's been time to represent that, and I think many of us are surprised that Grenfell first responders, local community folks are not represented, and maybe the opportunity has been missed to heal some of the wounds.
The Cabinet Office, have said that it takes time for nominations to come through the system. They will be noted next year. There is also chatter online about the fact there may be a deadline of around March, but as you pointed out, if the deadline was March, why have the England women's cricket team been noted as well? Sam Warburton captained the British and Irish Lions in the summer. It doesn't quite stack up if we're talking about deadlines. It doesn't.
Look, I mean, the point I really want to make here is that I think it's the most significant critique of the honours this morning. As I said to you both earlier, I think the honours system is a good idea. I think it's a great idea, but it's a missed opportunity. Let's right that wrong, I think, when it comes to the Queen's birthday honours in the spring.
Okay.
All right, Nabila, let's focus on the Mail. You're focusing on Lord Adonis suddenly resigning last night.
Yes, indeed, and unsurprisingly, the pro-Brexit paper, the Daily Mail, calls Lord Adonis an arch Ramoner who quitted because of, his criticism of Theresa May's handling of the Brexit project. So the article goes on to state, to quote bits from the resignation letter from Lord Adonis, saying basically he referred to the Brexit project as a dangerous populist and nationalist spasm worthy of Donald Trump. And also, Lord Adonis calls the Prime Minister the voice of UKIP and the extreme nationalist right wing of the Tory party, effectively. Now, I think beyond his specific comments, this highlights a massive division and indeed antagonism which underpins the whole Brexit discussion. And I don't think that anybody would expect anything less. And one should also remember that in the past there have been hugely divisive issues such as nationalisation or indeed nuclear weapons. And important issues do require dissent, and this is an example of that. And it's a very predictable incident, a very predictable democratic incident, shall I say, and there will be plenty more in 2018. I think it's also very interesting to note that Lord Adonis is accusing Theresa May of siding with UKIP and the hard right. Technically, it's a very reasonable comment because it was UKIP and indeed the hardliners who pushed for Brexit in the first place, and they were supported by millions of voters. But the reality, however, is that Theresa May, who was of course a pro-Remain herself, has been watering down the Brexit project and more and more, to the extent that Nigel Farage, UKIP's most influential Brexiteer, has now disowned what's going on. So I think it's quite right to hear from people, Lord Adonis, but I think that ultimately his comments will lead to the watering down of the Brexit project even more.
Ian, the front page of the Times is also one of our top stories. Travel firms duping buyers with bogus, cheap deals. Sales are not what they think they are.
Yeah, buy now, buy now. That's a kind of refrain that we get. The Times is pointing to how often do you go on a travel website and be told 10 other people are looking at this very same hotel. I mean, all the classic sort of marketing pressure sales techniques being used, which has done an investigation, basically showing that you can buy a holiday that was on sale the day after the sale ends, often considerably cheaper than the sale price. You have to be canny to seek out any kind of bargain and actually resist the pressure. Buy when you want to buy something.
What's really interesting about this is, you know, I don't know about you, but I can shop around. I'm a good shopper. I can go to all the price comparison sites, but there's nothing you could essentially do here, because unless you're constantly paying attention to the sales, you wouldn't know whether it's more expensive or cheaper anyway.
Well,
so you wouldn't really know whether you're getting a bargain unless you're constantly online.
Well, you make a good point. I mean, some of the aggregators are better than others in terms of actually giving you a better deal and seeking out the best deal. I mean, what I tend to do is I use a variety of sites. I use both online and other forums to actually seek out what I think is the best price. But, you know, we're all time poor. After a while, you say, I want to go on holiday, and you just book that holiday.
Listen, we'll have to leave it there for just a minute, but join us after the break. We're going to talk about how expensive weddings are. Stay with us.
Are we?
Very true.
You're watching Sunrise. Ian and Nabila are still with us this morning, going through the Saturday morning papers. And we got a story in the Sun this morning. Another good reason why to have a hair transplant. It's not just about the hair, is it?
Well, yes, indeed. It's a story about how hair transplant can bring an end to migraines. So effectively, there's something for everybody in a story like this. Some people need hair transplant, other needs to end what is a chronic problem for them. And this story seems to be combining the two. So it says that people who suffered the migraines frequently for up to 20 years have stopped having such issues after the operation. But then the story goes on to say that this is a potential relief for people who are bald and who suffer crippling headaches, and it could benefit people with a full mane even.
Why is that? Why is it ending migraines for people?
It says the surgery damages nerve endings in the scalp, and that might reduce pain signals that trigger migraines, according to this article. So more research needed, potentially,
yes,
on that.
Because it actually also says that, you know, precisely how the cosmetic operation is able to foil the migraines remains unclear.
Let's talk about weddings, Ian. Apparently, the Times telling us that, well, in Scotland anyway, weddings are growing too costly for +1s to be invited.
Well, I had the rather unfortunate experience of a couple of people who I think just had a hangover who didn't turn up at my wedding recently. A couple of +1s.
You recently got married?
Just a few years ago now. But no, I mean, people are actually starting to say it's that whole stuff versus experiences debate. To a large extent, I think this story is part of. A wedding, average cost of a wedding is approaching £20,000.
That's a lot of money.
That is
That's a deposit.
That's a deposit on a house, or would have been many years ago. You know, that's out of control too, as well. So people are really trying to kind of ramp down costs. I mean, actually starting to say to their guests, "Can you bring along some of the items too along to their wedding?" But yeah, I mean, this is a classic sort of case of how just ordinary things are just getting more and more expensive, and people are starting to say, well, I actually just want the people that are closest to me, maybe not the hangers-on that may not be there.
Ian describing them as hangers-on. You're going to be a popular man at home later. Nabila, Ian, thank you. See you in the next hour for more newspaper chat. For the meantime, Gavin has the sport headlines. Let's check in with him.